Hi, it's Betty Lee, and we've got an amazing episode. I got to interview Paul Rodney Turner, and Paul Rodney Turner is the International Director of Food for Life and the co founder of Food for Life Global. What does that mean to you? That means you are going to listen to a man who has served 6 billion meals. He's serving like 2 million meals a day. Just crazy numbers. And these are going to people who need it. These are going to people that they have reached out to. It's a beautiful thing. Paul was a monk for 14 years. He learned how to cook. He learned how to share. He learned things that you need to know, and he's going to share with you. He wrote a book called Food Yoga, and it's actually on Amazon. And he's going to actually give all of you who are interested a few chapters that you can listen to, and then you can order the book. I am sending this book to everyone I know. I am very grateful to Paul for taking the time. And once you listen to it, you will all understand. And this, we're talking about Food for Life, Food for Life Global. They have served 6 billion meals. And what have we done? I don't know how many meals I've served, but this just goes into your heart and your soul. And listen up, Paul Rodney Taylor. Enjoy. I want to just say something to you. I'm going to give you a fact. Food for Life is the world's largest vegan food relief with projects in more than 60 countries. As of this moment, they have served more than 6 billion meals to people who need food. And I don't know if you've never heard of it, or you've ever heard of it. I had never heard of it. And I did a little bit of research and my heart went out, and this just sounds amazing. And we have the International Director of Food for Life and the co-founder of Food for Life Global, who's going to kind of explain how this has gone like underneath the radar, where all of us are not giving money every minute to this great organization. And we're talking to Paul Rodney Turner now and for the rest of this hour. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Betty. Good morning.
Good morning. Where are you?
I'm actually in the Andes Mountains of Colombia. So my wife here runs an animal sanctuary. It's the only animal sanctuary in the whole country. And we're 10,000 feet above sea level, actually. So we're very high up and it's very beautiful.
It must be like, that sounds sort of like a dream to be up there and giving all those animals another chance, huh?
It's the cleanest air. And, most people, they have this sort of Hollywood impression of Colombia, but it's actually quite developed. There's a lot of modern, I mean, you have all the modern facilities here. We have, amazing cinemas and shopping centers and the best food in the world, tropical fruits all year round, very cheap too. Like we literally can get a mango for like 20 cents all year round. It's amazing.
I don't know what you could get in the United States right now for 20 cents.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot. This is a plant-based program that has fed 6 billion meals to people. How does that all work?
Well, yeah. So that's an integral part of the actual, the roots, the foundation of the program is based on what's called the Vedic culture of hospitality. So in India, the ancient culture of India is called the Vedic culture, and it's based on the ancient Vedic scriptures. And so the idea is that everyone had this fundamental understanding that we're all spiritual beings and that, we've had many lifetimes. And so they believe in reincarnation. So as a result of that, as a byproduct of that, it was very common for people to go out of their way to make sure that everyone in the community, in their vicinity, was fed. So they couldn't tolerate any hunger. So typically the wife would prepare the meal, and then the husband would go outside and he would call out, "Is anybody hungry? Is anybody hungry? Please come, we will feed you." And then only after everyone had been fed would the husband sit down with the children and eat their meal. So pretty amazing. So that's sort of the roots of, Food for Life Global. It started as a village, feeding program in India in the 70s. So it was very grassroots origins. And eventually it expanded to Australia, was like the first uh, Western version of Food for Life. It started in Sydney. And we started, I was a monk back then. I became a monk at the age of 19. And my first service for the ashram was feeding people. So we would feed people freshly cooked vegetarian meals. It wasn't vegan at the time. It was a vegetarian food relief organization. And and that was going on quite well. And then eventually that project started expanding to different parts of the world. And then 10 years on, in 1993, I was asked to set up the headquarters for Food for Life and call it Food for Life Global. So to actually establish something formal, to provide some training and guidance. So I wrote a training manual, and I began traveling then around the world, teaching other volunteers how to start a program, how to cook the food. And, the program started expanding since then. So as of now, we have over 200 projects, of 213 projects in 60
Projects
countries.
meaning places where you have where you're feeding people.
Where we're feeding people. So we're in 60 countries, and those projects vary in scale. So like in India, we have like super kitchens, which provide, it's very sophisticated operations, very cost efficient, where we'll have rice cookers that literally can prepare 700 liters of rice in 15 minutes.
Oh,
We have chapati making machines. So you've been to an Indian restaurant and you get those Indian pocket breads. So we'll
yeah.
have a machine that will produce 10,000 of them in an hour,
Oh,
every hour. So it's very large scale, very sophisticated operation. So in India, we have these super kitchens pumping out large quantities of freshly prepared meals. And then we take those, we put the food in stainless steel containers and we deliver those to government mandated schools, like schools where there are underprivileged children, like poor children. So we go to the schools where the kids are, uh, you know, underprivileged, and we provide them a freshly cooked lunch. And then we have other projects in other countries where it may just be distributing food on the street to homeless people, or to a nursing home, or to an orphanage, and so on. So it varies in scale. But all of the programs that are affiliated with us now at Food for Life Global are only providing vegan meals. So as of about 15 years ago, we established the organization as only, as a vegan organization, because of the nature of the commercial dairy industry and how abusive it is. We decided to cut all of that out. So now it's purely plant-based, just vegan.
I wanted to ask you about that. Can you feed more people with plant-based than you can? I mean, I know the answer to this because I'm not a meat eater, but I think it would be shocking if people understood how many more people could eat and well.
You can, yeah, you definitely can. First of all, we're the most cost-efficient food relief in the world. We can feed more people for less money
Right.
than any other food relief organization in the world, guaranteed. And we did some calculations. One of my colleagues on staff did some calculations once, and he said that right now we're currently serving around 2 million meals a day, every single
2
day, 2
million
million meals
meals a day, everybody.
every day. It's around about 25 meals a second. So every
Wow.
second, someone's getting a meal, 25 people, which is pretty amazing. Now, he actually did some crunching some numbers, and he found that if we were not serving vegan meals, and we decided to serve traditional, like, meat and dairy meals, instead of 2 million meals, we could only serve around 60,000 meals with the same amount of money. So that's the difference.
So
There's-
if you're doing, I just want to, do you mind repeating that? I want people to
So,
understand what we're saying.
so if we were serving meals with meat and dairy, we could only feed around 60,000 people a day with the same amount of money we spend
Right.
to serve now up to 2 million meals with vegan food.
And what does a vegan meal look like from Food for
Well,
Life?
it's it's actually quite diverse and very nutritious. First of all, we always work with local nutritionists to make sure that the meals are, complete. And they vary a lot depending on the food culture, depending on the taste of the local people. We adjust the meals accordingly, and we just make vegan versions of the food that they like to eat. So in India, we have the greatest diversity in terms of like the menu, because we have such sophisticated operations, and they literally have 9 or 10 different menus, which change every day. So it's never the same meal. It's always changing. So it would be something like rice and dal and vegetable curry, and then another day it'll be like a samba, like a tomato soup, with vegetables in it, with chapatis.
Mhm.
And another day it would be, some potato dishes with rice and beans, and it just varies. It's always very, very lovely presentation and very nutritious.
So, what do we need to know? I did not know about this, and when I came upon it, I was so excited for so many reasons that so many people are being fed. But having said that, a lot of people being fed also means that somebody's got to pay for that. So I saw that you have some wonderful companies that support you. They're great. I really enjoyed looking at the different companies, but you need money.
We do, and you can imagine, even though we're very cost efficient, it's still at the end of the day, it still costs money to prepare and cook these meals and deliver them. There's delivery costs as well. Sometimes we'll have like security stuff, like in our sophisticated kitchens in India. It's such a big, complex operation where literally one kitchen can sometimes be preparing around 60 to 70,000 meals in just one kitchen,
Wow.
which is, quite extraordinary. So they'll have like um, at least 20 truck drivers. We have these mini trucks which carry the meals out to the various schools. So all of those, there's 20 truck drivers, and they'll have like maybe a dozen security staff and administrative staff. So, there's all of these costs as well, and it all varies. Now, just to be clear, Food for Life Global is a support office. So we're the independent affiliates around the world, over 200 affiliates, they're financially autonomous, so they are doing their own fundraising.
Wonderful.
And then we collect donations on behalf of the entire community of Food for
Mhm.
Life projects, and we give grants to the smaller projects that are maybe struggling, to raise funds. Just recently, like as of last week, we sent out about $20,000 in grants to different countries: Argentina, Ecuador, Bangladesh, Nepal, the United States as well. So, money went out to different projects. So it varies, the costs vary a lot, but at the end of the day, it's still, it averages out to around 50 cents a meal, on average.
Right.
It's cheaper in India, but on average, it can get up to $1 in some places, but usually around 50 cents. But we have to come up with that money. Those projects have to come up with that money. So we do have some companies that provide some support. We actually set up a separate entity called FeedOn, which is selling a certification called the On Guarantee certification. And so companies, socially responsible companies, can get their product or service On Guarantee certified. And what that translates to is that when they certify, they get their product certified, and that then means that X number of children get a freshly cooked vegan meal.
Oh,
So they may allocate, and each On Guarantee is only 25 cents. So it's quite an amazing opportunity. And a lot of companies are signing up. So literally they can allocate 25 cents in advertising, get their product On Guarantee certified, and then they can tell their customers, when you buy this product, not only do you get a great product, but you also just fed a child a freshly cooked meal. So it's beautiful.
it's very beautiful. It seems that more and more companies and more people want the companies they purchase things from to be socially and ecologically responsible, and that's
They're
something that's great.
well, they're demanding it, and that's in developing that social enterprise to support the charity. I did some research, and I found that literally 75% of consumers are demanding that companies give back to the community. They expect it. And in fact, most of them will change brands
Mm.
if one brand is actually charitable and giving back to the community and another brand is not. They'll actually go with the brand that's more charitable. So it's definitely being pushed now by consumers. And any smart company is now getting on board and realizing, we have to start giving back. We can't just be accumulating all this wealth. We need to start giving back in a meaningful way. And what's beautiful about the Om Guarantee certification is that giving back is measurable. So rather than a company saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, we're giving 1% to save the rainforest," what does that actually mean? How
Right.
many trees were planted? Did the CEO take 90% of that money and put it in his pocket? And then
Right.
what actually happened with that money? So what we say with the Om Guarantee certification, you certify your product and we guarantee an actual social output. One child or two children or whatever that number is, whatever impact you want to make, we guarantee that deliverable. So it's more measurable and it's more transparent, and at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everybody because it adds value to the company as well.
Value to the company and value to what you're doing and value
Yeah,
to to
the
those kids.
kids,
I mean, so
exactly.
often you see, I had the pleasure of being in Nepal for a month, and I actually taught art in a one of the monasteries in Session Monastery, um, and I took pictures of the kids around, and they were so adorable. And some of these people are really hungry, and as a human being living in this world, especially now, you look at people who are hungry, and we're here in America, and gee, I'll go to the supermarket tomorrow. Um, our sense of, I guess, responsibility is a good word. Our sense of that's just not good enough that I'm looking at that and I'm doing nothing about it. And when I
Yeah.
talk to you, you've served 6 billion meals and we'll serve more and more and more. And I certainly want to be part of something that amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that life is not simply about accumulating wealth and or becoming famous because all of those things are temporary. You can't take those things with you when you die.
Yeah.
But what you can leave as a legacy is, the positive impact you've made, or the seeds that you planted for social change, for social good. And so that's essentially what we're offering here with the Food for Life Global Project, an opportunity for people to make a really tangible impact, positive impact in the lives of children and the planet. Because it's vegan, that's another thing which we do mention on the website, is that the fact that we're vegan is not simply because we respect all life, which is important, but it's also about the fact that it is more cost efficient, it is better for our health, and it's better for the planet. Uh, the environmental, uh, the negative environmental impact from the meat and dairy industry
Right.
is well documented, and so, by staying away from that, just by eating a plant-based meal, you can save so many trees and save the planet in so many different ways. So, yeah, giving back is an important part of, you know, the life lesson. I mean, we are by nature servants. This is what drives us. Um, and it's, in fact, it's the innate characteristic of every living thing on the planet. Every living thing, whether that's a bug, a weed, a plant, a herb, an animal, human, all of us have a particular service to perform for the entire ecosystem. So we're all important. We all have a role to play for for the balance of nature. And so life is all about finding what is my calling, what is my service. I have a certain set of skills, I have a certain mentality, I have a certain opportunities around me. What can I do to leave the world a better place? We have to find that. That's what really should be the goal of people's lives, not about just accumulating wealth and becoming famous. And so that's, my service is providing that opportunity for people like yourself, you know, to find that meaning in life. So you have that real satisfaction that, you know, you're actually doing something that's meaningful.
And the sense of meaningfulness for me is always how the other person feels. If someone said, "Well, don't you feel good?" I used to hand out socks, hats, gloves, and protein bars in New York City. And it's like Thanksgiving, I would make like sandwiches, and people were so grateful.
Hmm.
It put a smile on people's faces, just sitting on the steps of the New York Public Library, and all of a sudden someone thinks about you. I mean,
Yeah,
I can't imagine anything more important for us to do. And there's just so many. We need people like you to spread this word, really, Paul. You talk about Veda. Can you just explain? I know that's a really long, and
it's a
it's
big
like
topic.
a field of study. Yeah, but
Well, in I wanted to lead into this talking about what we call food yoga. So,
oh, right,
so food yoga is something that I coined, the phrase I coined, you know, about 10 years ago. And it was essentially driven by the idea to explain the spiritual side of food for life. So, as you know, because I was a monk for 14 years, I practiced a very simple lifestyle, sleeping on the floor. I didn't even use a pillow, to be honest with you. I used my
really.
hands. Yeah, I use my hands. I use my hands like this. And cool showers, never had a hot shower. And just
14
very live
years.
very
Wow,
simply. Studied every day, chanted mantras for many hours every day, and practiced celibacy. So it was, you can imagine, from the age of 19 to 33 as a young man, that's no mean feat.
that's right in the thick of it.
Yeah, so I'm looking back now thinking, wow, how did I do that? So anyway, I did it, and I'm proud that I invested my energy in cultivating my higher awareness and not simply wasting that energy in, you know, mundane pursuits and
Right.
just sort of wasting my potential. So I sort of cultivated that higher understanding. And with Food for Life, as I mentioned, it has its roots in the ancient Vedic culture of India and this idea of making sure that no one goes hungry and everything, because we understand that essentially we're all brothers and sisters. We're all earthlings, however you want to look at it. Whether you come from the atheistic standpoint and you think that, you know, there was a big bang and we all just magically just all
Right.
appeared, or life in its diversity just appeared. Whether you believe in that or whether you believe in a divine creator, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because either scenario, in either scenario, there was an energetic singularity point. In other words, we all came from one singularity energetic point. So we're all energetically connected. So, you know, strip away all of the things which divide us, you know, the color of the skin, nationality, all of these things which divide us. At the end of the day, we're all energetic beings. So if you want to look at it from a Monday perspective, we're all earthlings. You know, we all share this one planet Earth. From a spiritual perspective, we're all spiritual beings. We're all energetically connected. We all have the same energetic signature, just different combinations. So we are connected, and the idea of using food as a way to promote that connection is very profound, and it's very accepted pretty much all over the world without even people really um, putting a religious sort of um, explanation to it, because all of us have had the experience of gathering around a dinner table and with a beautiful meal and feeling connected, feeling united as a family, even though maybe 5 minutes before we may have all sorts of different problems, and we, you know, arguing with each other. And but as soon as the meal is placed on the table, all of a sudden we're united as a family. So food yoga stems from that. In other words, we are the idea of using food as a great communicator to break down the barriers of divisiveness and to bring people together. So our main mission statement, our main message at the Food for Life Global Charity is uniting the world through pure food. And we believe that approach is the most effective way to rid the world of world hunger, because world hunger is not because of lack of food. There's plenty of food in the world. There's so much food. There's enough food to feed 3 times the population. But the reason why there is hunger is because of inequitable distribution. The food is not being equally shared, But no one's asking the next question: why is there inequitable distribution? It's because of this divisiveness, because we don't see ourselves as earthlings. We don't see ourselves as energetic beings, as spiritual beings, as a global family, as a spiritual family. Because of that, we therefore put all of these barriers up, and which results in inequitable distribution. So if we saw each other as brother, sister, and so on, hunger would disappear overnight. It would just disappear. It would not be present. So that's where food yoga comes into this, the idea of using food as a way to connect to our higher self. Yoga means to unite. And so I wrote a book to explain all of this, and the book is called Food Yoga. It's on Amazon. And, I lead into this with the book. In the beginning, I talk about how we're all energetic beings. I even get into quantum physics. I talk about how the mind is also an energy, how our thoughts are energy, how the thoughts that we have while preparing the food is one of the ingredients that goes into the food, and that affects the actual physical nature of the food. And we all have this experience when we eat mother's meal. When the mother cooks a meal, she cooks it with love, and you taste that difference, in that food. Even though the food may be very simple, it's invested with love. So that intention that the mother puts into the food has physically changed that food, and it has an effect on the consciousness. So this is all discussed in the concept of food yoga. So that's an very important part of the whole Food for Life mission, is to teach people about food yoga as well.
And at this particular time in our lives, when I feel like I'm looking at like another reality, like, is that happening? Are people talking like that? And is that what's going on? I can't imagine anything more important than coming back to where we all live and where we all should be concerning ourselves with certainly kindness for the next person, and certainly compassion for ourselves. This I just couldn't have found you at a more perfect time, and I want all of our listeners to understand how vital this is. They're not hearing this anywhere else. No,
Now, all you
go.
hear on the news is like, are you it's like you're either a Democrat, a Republican, you're black, you're white. I mean, all of these things are superficial designations. They don't actually identify the real essence of who we are as spiritual beings. They're simply, you know, mundane coverings or mundane distractions. They don't really define us. We're spiritual by essence. We're literally animating this physical body. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah, right.
We've had many other lives. We've had many other lives. We've been all sorts of other species, and right now we're in human form. It's a really wonderful opportunity, because it's only in the human form that we can ask these questions, and we can philosophize and start to understand the mystery of life. Why are we here? Why was I born in America? Why was I born in Nigeria? There are karmic lessons. Each one of us has lessons to experience, and that's all part of our spiritual evolution. At the end of the day, we all are evolving, but we're moving at different speeds, based on the decisions we make and based on our past activity. So things we did in the past, which may have been bad, they're going to come back to haunt us and make us have to face those realities, face that truth, and undergo some sort of correction. That's just going to be part of our journey. Eventually, we get to the point where the lessons have been complete and our consciousness is fully enlightened, and we're aware of who we really are and what this whole mystery of life is. And we move on to a higher dimension. We don't have to stay in this physical domain. We can move on to a higher realm. That's essentially how it works, and that's what's explained in the ancient Vedic scriptures of India.
When I first spoke to you, you explained I mean, we didn't have much time, but you explained to me just the concept of giving food to somebody. And it's not just, here's this and that's that. What it takes to from the world for a zucchini to grow. I'm so growing zucchini in my garden, and I go out there, and every day, and the leaves are green. There's yellow flowers with intricacy inside, and there's the vines going, and then there's the little zucchini. I mean, it's miraculous. And it's something to be so respected. I don't know if we get it.
Yeah, it is miraculous. And because of the nature of modern lifestyle with modern conveniences and supermarkets, people have lost their connection to the real world,
Right.
to nature. People are so disconnected from nature. We live in apartment buildings, which are literally like boxes in the sky. We're not even touching Mother Earth. We're living in a box in the sky, but we're not touching, not actually touching the ground with our bare feet and connecting to the mother. So yeah, it is a miracle. Miracles are happening all the time. And when you go out into your garden, when you look at that apple or that tomato, you have to understand that when you pick that tomato is making the ultimate sacrifice to become your meal.
Oh.
So you have to honor that. You have to have gratitude. Oh my God, you're actually giving your life for me to have life. So once, a food yogi, this is what I explain in my book, is someone that is aware of that connection, is aware of that sacrifice, is so grateful of, the blessings of life, and doesn't take anything for granted. So when you prepare a meal, it's like it's you honor those vegetables, you honor those fruits, and you prepare it in a very loving way, and then you make an offering to the divine mother, or the divine father. You actually make an offering back to them, in gratitude. So that's all explained in the book as well.
So that book is Food Yoga or Yogi.
Yes. No, Food Yoga.
Can I repeat that I'm talking to Paul Rodney Turner, and he is the international director of Food for Life and the co-founder of Food for Life Global. And this is such a beautiful conversation. I can only think about sending this book to everyone I know. I'm a Reiki master, and I always start our sessions. I have orchids, and I say, do you understand the texture of the petal of that flower? It's velvety. And then as you go deep into the flower, there's purple and there's the stamens, and it's all miraculous, and it's all happening around us. And we would be so much better off reading Food Yogi and getting the beauty out of life and not just checking the news.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, food is an important part of everyone's life. I mean, it's literally, the kitchen is like the center of the household. I mean,
Yeah.
We all gather around the kitchen. We go to the kitchen every day. We invest our energy in the kitchen. But for some reason, the last 20, 30 years, I would say, the mothers of the world have lost control of the dinner table.
Yeah.
They don't control the dinner table anymore. Now you see, people eating outside, kids eating in their rooms, not really connecting around the dinner table. We've sort of lost control of that. And it's a very important part of the family evolution. I mean, that time where you sit together, you enjoy a meal, and you discuss what's happening for the day. That's super important. And that's been lost.
When the pandemic started, I stayed with my daughter and my granddaughters and my amazing son-in-law. And we would say, we'd hold hands before we were so grateful. We would hold hands, and my granddaughters usually would always thank God. They're 5 and 8, and they would thank God for the food.
That's lovely.
On their own. I mean, that was where their blessing was. So it's Food Yogi, and it's on
food yoga.
Yoga. Well, you're the food yogi.
Yeah, I promote myself as the food yogi. So on social media, I'm the food yogi. But the book
I
is called Food Yoga: Nourishing Your Body, Mind, and Soul. That's a subtitle. So
what a
the idea is that food should not just be about nourishing the body. We need to nourish our mind and our consciousness. And there's a difference. And there's a difference. So I explain this in the book as well. Um, how we are essentially like the witness. We're animating this body. We're the driver of this car. And the mind, we're not the mind, and that's another thing with mental health issues of the world. People tend to think that the mind is them. They think, whatever the mind comes up with, that's them. That defines them. It doesn't define you. That is not you. The mind is simply a tool that we use to navigate through life. Similarly, the intelligence is another tool. And these things are explained in the Vedic scriptures. The most well known of those is the Bhagavad Gita, which was read by Gandhi and many great scholars of over the centuries. So the Bhagavad Gita is literally the words of Krishna spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra to his friend Arjuna, and it was just at the beginning of a huge war. And so you can imagine anyone that is a soldier, that is a military family, they understand the anxiety, the tension, the struggles of war, what it really means. I mean, it's very tangible to them. Whereas with us who are not from a military family, it's sort of more philosophical and it's a bit
right.
intangible. But those people that actually send their kids to war, or people that have actually been to war, it's overwhelming. It's very scary. So the idea is that this Bhagavad Gita was spoken at such an occasion. Arjuna was a great warrior, and all of a sudden he was overcome by he was bewildered. He was overcome by anxiety, thinking, I don't want to kill these people. I don't want to be in this war.
Right.
And then Krishna then explains to him, then there's the opportunity for Krishna to explain to him that you're not the body, you're a soul, and you've lived many lives. And so it's like the most extreme situation for someone to be put in, where the message of spirituality can really be driven home, because everything's illuminated. Oh my God, yes, I'm literally on the edge of life and death. And so at that point, people can then start to really welcome the idea that I am actually eternal. I don't die. Death is an illusion. Death is simply the soul passing from one dimension to another, or from one body to another. That's all it is. It's like walking through a door. So uh, these things are also discussed in food yoga. And so, I promote myself as a food yogi just because I wrote the book Food Yoga. And not that that concept is new, but I think it sort of encapsulates what I'm trying to convey when I talk about how food can nourish the mind, body, and soul. It shouldn't just be about nourishing the body. It's about nourishing all three things. So what I was getting to for the initial point was, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains to Arjuna that everything that we experience in this material world is essentially made up of 8 elements. Everything, just combinations of these 8 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. They're the 5 gross elements. And then you have the more subtle elements of mind, intelligence, and ego. And above them is a spiritual, is the soul itself. So that's the 9th element. Um, so there is a difference between the mind and the intelligence, but you won't hear that from most modern philosophers or scientists. They think that the mind is a product of the brain and the intelligence is a product of the brain. It's not. They're subtle energies. The brain is a vehicle for them to work through, but they're separate subtle energies, and they're different. And the way I explain the difference to most people is I say, look, imagine you're standing on the edge of a building, and you put your toes over the edge of the building, and you can see you're like 20 stories high. So your mind may come up with this idea that, oh my God, I wonder if you could fly. I wonder what it would be like if you could just jump and start flying like a bird. And so this is the mind. The mind is the source of creativity. The mind is where we solve problems. It comes up with out of the box ideas. So the intelligence then kicks in and then questions the mind's crazy idea and says, hang on a minute, you have a family, If you jump, you're going to fall. You don't have wings. So the intelligence is more analytical. It's more like a computer. Yes, no. It basically, the mind is posing ideas, and the intelligence will say yes or no, like a computer. That's a good idea. That's a bad idea.
Right.
So it analyzes those ideas. Now, the other aspect of this is that you, as the soul, is witnessing this conversation. That's the difference. You're witnessing this conversation. It's a very, very subtle difference. The mind is coming up with an idea. The intelligence is discussing that idea and questioning it, whether it's good or bad. You're witnessing that conversation. That's the soul. So the purpose of spirit, the purpose of human life is self-realization, to understand who we really are. What is our real subtle, our real spiritual identity? That's the purpose. And so everything you do in life has to be molded in such a way to help you raise that awareness, whatever it is, whether it's through eating, whether it's through the job that you do. It all should be directed to the purpose of raising our consciousness, getting us to a point where we know who we really are, what this mystery of life is,
Right.
so that at the time of death, we're not confused and we move on and we progress.
Wow. I would no, I would agree with that, that the soul just watches so much of what we do. And at one point, we have to turn and look at our soul and say, okay, you
Well,
take over now. Yeah,
well,
I kind of screwed up. You take over now.
well. See, the other thing I mentioned too. Remember, I said there was also another energy called ego, false
Yes,
ego. So
yes.
that's actually the most subtle of all the energies. So what happens is the soul is is working through a false ego right now. We're identifying right now with the physical body. We think this is me. I'm Paul Rodney
This is
Turner.
it.
I'm Betty. So
Yes.
it's that subtle influence of the false ego which confuses everything. So we as a soul are looking through like a glass colored lens. And so everything is like not
Right.
how it really is, because we're looking through a lens of false ego and a lens of a corrupted mind and a lens of an imperfect intelligence. So that's part of the challenge. So the idea is, in the Bhagavad Gita, it explains that we have to sharpen the intelligence, we have to purify the intelligence, we have to purify the mind through mantra, through proper behavior, through regulation, through regulating the senses, through proper sleep and recreation. All of these things help to calm the mind and purify the mind. And then eventually, over time, that false ego starts to dissolve and we start to realize who we really are.
We're afraid to, well, we could go on, but um what's interesting is I can speak for myself. I've always been like afraid to let go of that ego, because that's who that I'm afraid to let go of that because that's my identity. But it never occurred to me that some of the things I did under the name of ego or whatever were far scarier. I mean, it's just such a gentle and beautiful place to be, what it is you're talking about.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, Betty, is that although we have to always try to cultivate higher awareness, whatever we do. And it's a process. It's not overnight. It's not an overnight thing. This is a lifetime of cultivation, of practice, of trying to like raise our consciousness over time. Although we can do that, you know, we still have to function in this material world. So we have a certain set of karma that we have to play out. So right now, you as Betty, me as Paul, I have a certain set of lessons and experiences I have to go through. So I can't just like check out right now and say, you know what, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
be a soul and I'm just gonna commit suicide or something like that. It doesn't work like that. You can't cheat the system. You have to play out this role right now. I have to play out this role as Paul Rodney Turner, as a father, as a humanitarian, and I've got to do my service to the community. All this is part of my life experience. All this is part of getting me to the point where I become aware of who I really am. So at the time of death, I'm not confused and I'm ready to actually make progress. And I don't make the mistake thinking, oh, I'm Paul Rodney Turner. I don't want to die. I want to live forever. I want to live forever in that body, and that this is all temporary.
Right.
We have to be ready to give up that, be detached and move on, because that's not who we are. That's simply a role that we played for a certain set of years that we had to be here.
Wow. Thank you so much for this. This is in your book, Food Yoga.
For the most part, yeah, most of that is in there, yeah.
A lot of it
And
is.
a lot of it is, and I have a couple of other books which expand on a few other concepts. But all of it is based on. Another thing I want to share with you is that I'm not simply coming up with these ideas. They're all based on either scriptural references or scientific study. So, like in my most recent book, I wrote a book called The 7 Maxims of Soul Happiness. And in that book, I explain 7 sort of things, or 7 concepts which will bring us to a point of always being happy if we understand these 7 concepts. And rather than simply just quoting scripture, I actually base most of the premise on scientific research. So this is important. So because for most people, when you start quoting the scripture, it's like they just shut down, and they just get disconnect, because for them it's like woo woo, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just not real. So although they have some value, we also have to look at ways to explain spiritual concepts and realities using the logic and the tools of the mundane world. So I'll often quote, you know, scientific research to make a point, so that people can't even argue that. It's like, it's not, I'm not quoting scripture. I'm giving you a hard science. This is real data,
Right, right,
and this is backing up this point that I'm making.
right.
So, for example, I'll give you one example. The idea of intention, where I talked about earlier, how when we eat a meal prepared by a mother, we feel the difference. It's filled with loving intention. So for most people, they may think, oh, intention, that's woo-woo. It's not really measurable, but actually it is. There's a whole science of intention. You can Google this stuff. There's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of scientists researching intention and measuring intention. That it's
Really?
actually it's a measurable phenomena,
Wow.
and it has an impact on the physical world. It's real science being conducted by thousands of scientists around the world, and it's real. It really does have an influence on our life.
I've often
So
thought about that, the intention with which you do something.
yeah,
If you do something angrily or you do
yes,
something lovingly. I mean,
it's an energy. It is an energy which is
yeah,
measurable. There's one you may for your listeners, they can look at the work of uh, Mac Taggart. Her name is Mac. What's her first name? I just lost her first name.
it's
But
okay.
you look for a book. Look for a book called The Intention Experiment.
Oh,
Intention. The Intention Experiment. Another book she wrote called The Field, and it's beautiful. It documents this research by intention scientists.
and how that changes the way you live the intention with which you do something is going to change the way you feel about it, the way the thing it's responding. But the intention with which you do something, we can make a difference, all of us.
Yeah.
Before I lived here, which was just 3 months ago, I lived in New York City, and I was miserable. I was in a box in the sky. And now I'm outside all the time, as much as I possibly can be outside, and I have a vegetable garden, and it's night and day. I have to make sure not to bring that same intention here that I had when I was in New York, with just working and doing this and doing that and riding on the subway. But I can let go of that intention. I want to talk about food for life. I hate to let this conversation end, but I want to make sure everybody understands. Sometimes we see pictures of kids who are hungry, some adults that are hungry, people who are living in situations that as Americans we are inconceivable, frankly. And we look at it and say, well, what can I do for them? I mean, gee, that's too bad. But can we just bring that home a little bit? And you have served 6 billion meals.
Yeah, and that's a conservative estimate, to be honest with you. It actually could be double that, because I'm just basing this on conservative estimates of how many meals certain projects have distributed thus far. And I was very careful not to like overblow that, and
Right,
still it was enormous numbers. So,
right.
so,
You
so
said,
yeah, it's
how
amazing.
much?
Yeah, yeah. So it's at least that, and it's definitely up to around 2 million meals every single day. So it's important, on many aspects. On the material aspect, because people need to eat. It's an important part of. I mean, we have to make sure that everyone gets food. There's plenty of food. So and it's not just food. It's food which is prepared with loving intention. It's plant based. There's no negative karma, no negative energy in it. So it's very nourishing to their body as well as their mind and their consciousness, because the meals are prepared with a loving intention. So it's complete welfare in that sense,
Yeah.
because you can. An example given by my spiritual teacher, he says mundane charity is like when someone's drowning in the ocean, and rather than saving their body, you just grab their shirt. You just grab their shirt and save their shirt, and you don't actually save the person.
Right.
So, in the same way, if we simply just focus on the mundane needs of people, like filling a belly, that's okay. That's important, but it's not the complete person. So that's why the food has to be prepared with love. It has to be plant based, because then it's nourishing the mind and the consciousness as well. So it's complete welfare.
Um,
So,
so you are in or places where these people depend every day on food from Food for Life. Is that right or not?
yeah, and as I mentioned, like in India, it, India is quite a unique country in the sense that there's incredibly wealthy people and incredibly poor people.
Mm.
And so our Food for Life projects in India, at least, are primarily focused on providing meals to the underprivileged children in the very poor schools of India.
Uh-huh.
Um, and literally, some of these children, or many of these children, come from the slum. I mean, they're coming from shanty towns, like very slum type dwellings. And normally, the parents would be holding these children back from education because they need to survive, right? So they would get the kids on the street begging,
Yeah.
or get the kids doing work, and so child labor. So because of this program, this is one of the side benefits of Food for Life, and what we call the midday meal program, which was initiated by the Indian government. They started this 20 years ago, and they called for nonprofits to help them do this. So one of the major impacts of this program is that now children are going to school. The poor families are pushing their kids to go to school, get an education, because there's a beautiful lunch waiting for them every single day. So as a result, education, is getting a very positive impact on the education of Indian children. Attendance levels are way up, all sorts of things.
Wonderful. They
Yeah.
do that in America. And I mean, I know my granddaughters went to a school and I think they serve 3 meals a day. I think that was an
That's
important
good.
thing. And one of the sad things is when this pandemic lockdown came, they
Uh,
they had buses and they were kind of delivering food to areas.
and you think about it, education is so important. And, you would think that the governments of the world spend so much money, particularly the US government spends so much money on military.
Right.
And if they could spend some of that money, even 1% of it, on providing meals to all the children in the schools, that would be such a wonderful, positive experience for all the kids. That every day they would be guaranteed a healthy meal. So yeah, so with Food for Life, we obviously want as many people to participate in this project, not only in helping us deliver those meals, but even advocating for the message of Food for Life, which is uniting the world through pure food. So you yourself was, kindly taken on that opportunity to be an advocate for the charity, to
Yeah.
raise awareness of what the charity is doing. Fundamentally is feeding children, but also the message of the charity, which is very pertinent right now. I mean, with all of the divisiveness that's happening in the world, it's just insanity. the lies of the media, misleading young people, making them think certain ways, and it's just craziness. That's craziness.
But this is beautiful, and this is kind, and this is ancient, and I am really honored to talk to you. But more so, I just can't wait to get this message out. Um, what can people do? Is there a email or a, I don't know,
Yeah,
website? What should we do?
you can go to the social media for Food for Life is Food for Life Global on
Okay,
Facebook, Food for Life Global on Instagram. And so you can definitely visit those pages, like them, share whatever we share on those social media platforms. You can visit the website at ffl.org or foodforlife.org, and you can donate to support the charity's, relief work. You can become an advocate and help raise awareness and promote the message of what Food for Life is sharing. And there's other volunteer opportunities. So you'll find us on volunteermatch.com. Volunteermatch.com is where people can seek out volunteer opportunities. And so we have, I think, about 12 or 13 different opportunities currently.
you have some amazing ones.
Yeah.
Translating, um,
Yeah.
yeah, the Japanese and Chinese. I mean, you have some
We're
really
trying,
great opportunities.
we're trying, we're trying to reach, we're trying to expand our reach. So recently we started translating the whole website. And so I'm basically calling for volunteers to help us edit the translations. And so we can reach a whole bunch of new people, which is
Right.
important right now. The reason why I've done this for so long, I literally have been a humanitarian and with the Food Flow Project for over 35 years.
Wow.
And so it drives who I am. It is my service to humanity, to provide this opportunity for people to serve people a freshly cooked, plant-based meal prepared with love, and also the idea of promoting this message, which I really believe has a lot of value, and it's non-sectarian. That's another thing. It's a
Of course.
non-sectarian message.
I,
It doesn't
I
matter who you are, what country, what religion. It
absolutely,
resonates.
absolutely. I wanted to just also say the guarantee. If you're listening and you have a company, this guarantee is important for you. Do you just mind explaining it
Yeah.
so people
So
know?
essentially, the OM guarantee is for socially responsible companies to
Uh-huh.
make a measurable, positive social impact that is certified. So, most social entrepreneurs, most conscious people today, company owners, they want to do good. They don't want to hurt the planet. They want to be responsible, and they want to give back, something. So this is an amazing opportunity and a very cost efficient way to give back to the community. Literally, it only costs 25 cents. So there's no barrier of entry. I mean, it's like
Right.
25 cents. You can allocate either 25 cents per the sale of a particular product, if that's possible, or you can purchase as many OM guarantees as you want and attribute them across the entire brand. Some companies
Oh,
do that. They'll,
wow.
they'll buy like a they'll buy like 1,000 OM guarantees, right? Which will cost $250, right? And that can be written off as advertising costs. It's not a donation, so it's a tax advertising expense.
It's
So for
brilliant.
that $250, you buy 1,000 guarantees. You have that to promote on your social media, on your website, on your
Right.
packaging, that our company has fed 1,000 children. So there's value for the brand of the company. The
Right.
kids get a meal. The charity wins. Everyone wins. The consumers win. Because they participate in it. You've given the consumer, your customer, an opportunity to participate in your social good.
And I actually know of a couple companies. I know some young people. My friends Scott and Jack actually have a very responsible company, and it's all about that. And they're young and wonderful, and they have a great.
So you can go to, your listeners can go to omguarantee.com and they can
Okay.
learn about it. Omguarantee.com. OM stands for Output Measurable Guarantee.
Oh, great.
So that's where that came from. So it's literally, we're measuring an output. It's not simply a vague promise like a greenwashing thing where, we're giving back,
Right,
there's no
right.
one there. It's a
The lead.
tangible outcome output. It's an output measurable guarantee. And so they can go there, they can register their company, and then they can start participating, purchase as many guarantees as their budget suits their budget. And, this directly supports the charity Food for Life.
So we're talking about this gentleman, Paul Rodney Turner, has his company, or the company that we're talking about, Food for Life and Food for Life Global, has fed 6 billion meals. So you can just imagine, of really amazing plant-based food. Thank you. I thank you so much for this. By the way, food yoga is a book you got to get.
Yeah.
And I know you all were listening to this conversation and saying, yeah, but where do I learn more? I need to get rid of the ego and all. Well, go to food yoga. And that's a great start. Paul, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'd be happy to offer all of your listeners a free sample of the book to download, like the first 2 or 3 chapters. They can download and check it out. And if they like it, they can purchase it on Amazon.
Okay. How do they do that?
I'll give you a link that people can download.
And then I'll put it in the,
samples. Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you for
welcome.
that. Well, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending the time. I
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And you all will hear more about this as the days go by. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.